Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Jackie Lamping, Chief Marketing Officer at Modern Health, and I'm really excited to be sitting down here today with two really inspiring CEOs, Alyson of Modern Health and Ariel Cohen of TripActions. Welcome both. I'd love to start off with you, Ariel. Prior to joining Modern Health, I was in the travel tech space. Sojourn was an early beta tester, and so I know and love the product really well. But for our audience here, tell us about your vision for TripActions and the problem you're trying to solve.
Sure. So for us, for both Elon, my co-founder, and I, it's about really being there in person and meeting people and getting to know them. So, if you think about business and you want to close a deal, it's very transactional thinking, but it would be much more effective if you get to know the person that you're trying to do business with, or to get to know the people, the person that you're trying to hire, or your team members, and so on. So we have this strong belief that business travel and generally travel allows to connect people. But there is so much hassle around it, like it takes a long time to book your trip. If you need to change something, it's really, really annoying. All of the incentives are not aligned between the employer and the employee and the vendors that are out there. So we took an approach of, let's make it super easy. It takes up to 6 minutes to book your entire trip in TripActions in average. If something happens, we will proactively support you. And then create a lot of win-wins through rewards, through information between the employee, the company, and the various suppliers that are out there. So that's the idea behind TripActions. And as a user, you probably you were able to, I hope that you were able to see some of it.
Alyson, Modern Health's mission, what's the vision? What is the company's main goal and the problem you're trying to solve?
The goal of Modern Health is to make it easy for everyone to engage in their mental health. And traditionally, when we think about mental health, people usually think about people in crisis mode, right? They think about people who are struggling with depression and need to get access to a therapist. But I actually grew up with parents as doctors, and my mom is a primary care physician, and preventative health was always so important to health overall. And so the idea behind Modern Health was to build a more holistic solution that engages a whole population. So whether you're dealing with everyday stress of work, isolation during a pandemic, loss of a loved one, anxiety, depression, all these things, we wanted to be able to build a solution where every single person can engage, whether that's through digital content, virtual coaching, virtual therapy. And so the idea is that there's no one size fits all for mental health. And through the Modern Health platform, we personalize the experience so that every single employee can engage in their mental health and take a more proactive stance versus waiting till they're in crisis mode and then needing to engage in their mental health.
Ariel, of course, the travel industry has been one of the hardest hit industries so far this year. But your company has been on this incredibly high growth trajectory. You were valued at $4 billion last year, and then you had to go through some painful layoffs. And how did you think about those decisions? I know you've spoken a lot about how much you care for your employees, and how did that process go?
First of all, it's a tough one, right? It's not just about being on a certain trajectory. It's you have employees in a startup, right? And you guys are a startup, and you are building something together. And there is a built-in assumption that as long as you are building it together and people are doing their job and are excelling at their job, they'll be part of the journey. And when we decided to do layoffs, we basically broke it, right? We broke this trust that an employee has, that as long as you're going to do your job really, really well, you're going to be part of this journey. And we laid off really good employees, right, as part of the layoffs in March. So that was definitely a tough one. But my perspective on this one is that if you want to be there in the day after, right? So you had to take these steps, right? You have to be responsible. You have to look at, the reality. And the reality generally in the economy, but definitely in business travel, is a tough one. We are a platform we make revenue based on usage. So we are signing corporate accounts, but then the revenue is coming based on the usage. And the usage went down by 99%. Which means that the revenue went down by roughly 95%. That's a huge, huge hit to a later stage startup. So we had to take these steps. I can tell you that what we see in the market right now, not on usage level. We see a peak in usage. It's cool to see, but really still small numbers. But from signing new accounts perspective, our last 3 months were the best month in TripActions history. We signed 3 top enterprises. We cannot talk about them yet because we still didn't deploy them, but really big enterprises. We saw what we are calling the travel budget under management, right? We saw this thing growing really fast. So we are actually very optimistic that when things will get back to normal, we'll get back to growing and really fast on a revenue perspective.
Alyson, I think we've seen some similar trends at Modern Health. I think there was a trend sort of pre-COVID that was employers being more interested in expanding mental health benefits, mostly because some of the traditional solutions out there were ineffective. But now we're seeing Fortune 500 companies coming to us. And what do you see as the trends happening as we move forward?
It's super interesting if you take a step back here and you think about what has changed in the way that we work. And it's pretty crazy to think about, not that long ago, we didn't have cell phones. We weren't tethered to technology that we are today. We didn't have laptops at home. In our lifetime, people worked 9 to 5. They went home and spent time with their families. And, then came this massive progression with technology. And if you think about the rate at which civilization has progressed, and then you think about humans on a biological level, we actually haven't kept up with the rate that technology has advanced and civilization has progressed. So even pre-pandemic, there was this massive change in the way that we work and the way that we're tethered to technology, and how can we thrive in this world where, by looking at an app in a matter of 30 seconds, you can feel jealousy, sadness, happiness, just by scrolling through your email or looking at, social media applications. And so part of the idea behind Modern Health is how can we give folks the tools to thrive in this new way that we work? Because it's very different, right? It's put us all at higher risk for things like depression and anxiety than ever before. I often say it's like we as humans are a V1 operating system in a V1000 world, right? Because we actually haven't evolved on a biological level. Then bring in this pandemic, right, overnight, and now we have workstations next to where we go to sleep. And so that disconnect between work and life is actually even blurred even more. And so this was a massive issue before, but it's even been exacerbated further, right? You have people who are staring at their computer for 10, 12 hours a day, whereas before maybe they took a break to walk and, get lunch or go to the bathroom or be in meetings where they're not staring at a computer. So we have things like Zoom fatigue. You have parents home without childcare who are, both parents are working, they're taking care of their kids, and maybe they're working from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. while their kids go to bed, and now they're perpetually exhausted simply because they just don't have childcare and they can't afford to stop working. And so all of this has just exacerbated this new change in the way that we work pre this pandemic. And so what we're seeing in the benefits in HR space is that mental health has become an even bigger priority than it was before. It's become a necessity in order to continue to be productive and continue to innovate at the rate that we were innovating pre-pandemic and pre this, massive change in the way that we work. And so this is really coming to the forefront in the benefits space. We're seeing that HR leaders are getting, requests from employees every single day of what can I do to calm my anxiety of being in isolation, not being able to be with my family, having, kids at home who are crawling behind me while I'm in the middle of a Zoom meeting with a sales deal that I'm really trying to close. These are things that really impact people's mental health, and it's gotten to the point now where it has come to a head and people are realizing we have to be able to support our employees' mental health in order to get through this time. And so it's just become an even bigger priority than ever before.
Ariel, you have a global workforce, right? So as this pandemic has touched different areas of the world at different times in different ways, how have you thought about supporting your employees, and what kinds of things have you been asked for, and how have you been advising your HR team and your people leaders?
Yes, I think to Alyson's point, all of us will need to learn to work in a completely new environment, and we needed to do it in one day, right?
Yeah, overnight.
Overnight, and at the beginning it's very technical, right? For us it was, how do you mobilize a global support team? We still had travelers, we actually still have travelers right now, but back then we needed to cancel a lot of flights, right, in one night. Like, the travel between Europe to the US stopped in one night. We had 3 days to bring all of the travelers back. Wow. And on the same week, everybody went to work from home, right? So at the beginning it was very technical process. How do you mobilize the team to work even harder from home on the first weeks of, of Corona? But then, we stabilized, right? And then it was, how do we operate, right? I think you talked about it. I see Zoom, it's more than a fatigue. It's very much transactional. Yeah. You get to a meeting, you achieve whatever you want to achieve. You're coming out of the meeting. It almost stripped out humanity out of it, because there is body language in meetings. There is what was the mood of the people when they went into the meeting, and what was the mood of the people when they went out. And and if you said something that you shouldn't have said, you still can see them, right, and talk with them and kind of correct and so on. In the video conferencing environment, you don't have it. And then they're with their kids, and they're at their home, and you sometimes even saying stuff, then the entire family is hearing that, right? You can see these situations. So I think it definitely creates a lot of different challenges. For me, it was to try to find the mechanisms, such as continuing to have the weekly all-hands meeting. Actually not doing the all-hands meeting in kind of a webinar mode, so keep it in a way that people can actually talk, right, and bring up stuff. There is also more communication, more kind of formal communication, updating the team, sending stuff. Slack and Zoom were amazing during this process, but eventually it's a workaround. Eventually it does affect people's health and also their mental health, right? And I think that people need more support. So you do some basic stuff such as happy hours, this stand-up, and so on. I do think that what you guys are doing, even before, I thought that it will catch up very quickly because of the pressures that you usually have in the workplace. I think now it will just go like this. People need it, companies need it, and I think employers will want to engage more and more in activities that are really taking care of their employees.
Alyson, being the CEO of a company that is focused in the mental health space, mental health and mental wellness are part of our company's DNA. So what are some things that you've rolled out, tactically since COVID to help with our employees at Modern Health? You've obviously led with vulnerability. Share with us some of what you've done.
Yeah, of course. So I think when all of this hit, I was in complete denial. I just, I was like, okay, we're working from home. Our schedule stays the same. We'll just be on Zoom. We're growing. We're lucky we have jobs. I felt like I had a lot to be grateful for, so I didn't want to complain. I'm home with a roof over my head, plenty of work to do, and I don't have kids. So I was like, I can't be someone complaining right now. And all of a sudden this, I think it was a couple months in, just hit me oh my gosh, it is going to be it could be like this for a while. And this is tough. This is really hard to be staring. I'm very much an extrovert. I enjoy interacting with people, meeting them in person. I feel like that is really how I like to be a leader and how I like to, build a team and a culture. And it just got to me staring at Zoom every day, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be like this for a while. And it got to a point where I was just I remember staring at my computer, and I was writing an email. I was like, I think I've reread this email 20 times. I've spent an hour on an email that would take me 2 minutes. I was like, I need to just get outside, go for a run and clear my head. And I came back and I wrote this long message to my team, and I just shared with them, and I was like, hey, I haven't wanted to complain because I feel like I'm in a position where I feel very grateful. So I've kind of held back on saying anything negative, and I've even told my team, we should all be grateful, we shouldn't be complaining. And I finally said, this is really hard, and I understand that a lot of you guys are probably struggling, even though you have a job and a roof over your head. This is really tough on all of our mental health, and especially acknowledging, hey, we're in the mental health space, and so we should know that. And so after that, I think the biggest thing was just acknowledging this is a new time, this is a new world that we're all learning to operate in, and to cut ourselves a little bit of slack that we're figuring it out. And so that involved everything from, hey, we're going to double our mental health stipend, to give people mental health days. Over Memorial Day weekend, we gave everyone that extra day off to really, take time to take care of their mental well-being. And also use it as an opportunity to look at the silver linings, which is, hey, for parents out there, you might not get this time again with your kids. Go take a day off, spend the time with your kids, and find, enjoyment out of it versus oh my God, this is so stressful, I'm working till 3 a.m. So it was at that moment where I realized we need to get flexible. Let's roll up our sleeves and not try to be so rigid and try to replicate how we were working in an office at home. So with our, with our parents at work, it was, hey, what what times can we work that work for you? If you need to watch your kids during the day, like we'll have 9 p.m. meetings. I'll have my one-on-one with you at 8 p.m. Like that's fine. We can be flexible. And for other people, it was, hey, I'm tethered to technology. I have my workstation next to my bed. So like I need to turn off at 10 p.m. or if I read my email or check my Slack, like I'm not sleeping tonight. And therefore I'm waking up late in the morning and I feel groggy and my whole rhythm is getting off. So I think it was first just acknowledging it at the leadership level and leading with vulnerability and acknowledging that, hey, we need to be flexible as leaders and support our employees and whatever it is that works for them. And understanding that it is a tough time for everyone. They are going through things differently. And so everything from increasing our mental health stipend, encouraging people to take time off. I think it's kind of weird right now to take time off because there's nothing really to do. So people are just working nonstop, and even through the weekends, I find myself, I'm like, well, there's nowhere to go, so I guess I'll just Saturday and Sunday are the same as Monday and Tuesday. But it really is important to take the time to reset so you can be motivated at work and get up in the morning and jump out of bed and get that excitement. So I think it's really about encouraging employees to figure out what it is for them that will work for them and help them continue to thrive and be resilient during this really tough time. And so we have encouraged people to really take time off, even if it means go camping, get outside, do something. Because I think people are saying all over the place, hey, productivity is going up. And I'm like, yeah, because we all have nothing else to do right now but work. So I think finding the right balance and figuring out ways to take the time to reset mentally to continue to stay motivated at work and be productive.
Ariel, I know we were talking about this earlier, but of course you've had to go through some cost-cutting exercises, and that included everything from renegotiating rates on your real estate leases, et cetera. And you were doing everything you could to make sure that you didn't have to cut as many employees as you did. And now you're looking at making an increase in your investments in mental wellness for your employees. So why is that the one area where you really believe you want to increase your investments?
Yeah, it's actually related to what you've talked about. I also had the same process at the beginning. It was just walk. It was kind of survival mode. So we went to, I think I found myself 6 weeks in, and I realized that we've been walking for like non-stop, like weekends, everything. And I felt exhausted, right? And I decided to, I think like you, share it with the team in one of the All-Ins and say, hey, I think that we need to allow ourselves to take some time off, to completely disconnect. So I did it, and every time that I did it, I was very vocal about it purposely. Usually I'm not publishing, hey, I'm
taking time.
Exactly, I'm off, right? But I was very vocal about it. Hey, I'm planning not to open my laptop during this weekend, just that you'll know. And my goal there was to lead by example, to come and say, it's actually okay to stop working. I know that you're not leaving your house anyway, but you don't have to be connected to the computer. So I noticed about myself, right, how it affects me. I do have kids. I have 3 kids, and we can debate if people want more time with their kids or not. As of Corona, I think parents got a lot of time with their kids recently. But now, seriously, it is an opportunity. You get to know your kids much more than you used to, which is definitely an opportunity. But when it comes to investments, I look at my team, right, and I can see that it is really tough for them. The day in, day out, the video conferencing, not meeting in person. TripActions was very much about meeting in person. You'd walk in this office, which is now empty, but you walk in this office and you can feel the energy. And people have lost that. And they also lost some of the certainty, right, of the ability to continue to get employed, right? We have a pretty big support team. And the support team right now is not very busy. So you sit in the team and you can ask yourself, okay, will I be here tomorrow, right? So it can definitely impact, you need help, you need support. So that's why, I've decided while we are cutting costs, why we are definitely not investing in new things right now, to actually engage and add this offering to our employees. I think it's actually really important in these times, probably more than ever.
Alyson, in addition to COVID, we now find ourselves in even more anxious times, given the political climate, the racial injustices, the police brutality. And at Modern Health, we've mobilized some resources to support the community. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's just crazy, crazy times for people, and we wanted to be in a position where we can help as many people to amplify their voices and amplify Black people's voices. And so what we've done is our whole team rallied pretty much like overnight to tap into our provider network and find really amazing Black providers that were willing to do these community sessions. One for Black people, and then two for people who want to be allies. And we actually created these separate webinars so that people could have a safe space to talk openly. And they filled up like overnight. So we were just seeing that there is this huge demand in a time like this to come together as a community. And so we want to be in a position where, because we have these amazing providers and we have the technology to facilitate it, to use our resources. And so that's exactly what we're doing. We, pre all these things that are happening, we had started to do these webinars right when the pandemic hit, because we realized, wow, we want to be able to offer our services through these group webinars online, even for those who don't have access to the Modern Health benefit. And we did about 100 of those sessions, and it was amazing to see how people responded, how vulnerable they were, just sharing their stories of things that they're going through. And so that's exactly what we're just continuing to do, but specifically to be able to support the Black community. In addition to that, we are a startup, but we thought it was incredibly important to show that as a leader and being in a position of privilege, to give back. And so we are donating $15,000 and matching employee donations up to an additional $10,000 to organizations that are supporting racial injustice, the Black community. And so it's really been inspiring to see all of our employees just jump in and help.
Ariel, I'd love to ask you, as an Israeli and as CEO of a global workforce, how have your employees responded to this?
First of all, I think you want to look at this as a human being. And while I definitely lack, as a newcomer to the US, some of the historical context of everything that is going on right now, you can definitely, as a human being, you obviously, it's something that shocks you, right? You look at the way that George Floyd got killed, and it's shocking, right? It's something that's hard to explain to your kids, right? So I think, first of all, as a human being, you can definitely relate to this. I'm well aware that I lack both the cultural context of what is going on generally in the U.S. and specifically about that issue even more, right? Because it is very, very, very hard for me as a privileged white male, right, to understand exactly what people are undergoing. But so I took an approach of, first of all, making a stand and saying, hey, this is disgusting. This is not okay. This cannot happen in a society, but also to just listen. We are a fairly diverse company on a lot of different levels, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's gender. So we are fairly diverse, which actually means that you have more people that you can actually talk with and listen to them and try to understand what they're going through. But eventually it is about taking some actions, right? So from our perspective, it was to allow time off to go and protest if you want to. We have hourly employees, so in that case, we needed to actually almost pay them to be able to do that. But again, like earlier, right, it is important, right? Also to take to build an ally network, right? To also use, solutions like yours to do it, right? So I think there are a lot of activities that you can do to help your employees, right? To help your employees that are affected, that feel really, really bad right now, that want to make a stand, whatever you want to do. And that's kind of the space that I wanted to leave to our employees.
I would love to ask you about your own mental wellness routine, because obviously it takes a lot of emotional energy to give to your employees and to feel what they're feeling. And what's your routine? Do you have a meditation practice? Do you see a coach or a therapist?
It's funny, we got connected, I think, through Adam Bain.
Yeah.
And I'm always joking that Adam is my psychiatrist, but now really seriously, you do want to have people that you can reach out to and that you can trust them, right? That you can share something with them and they will not really judge you. And as a CEO, as an investor, and so on, Adam is definitely one of them. Ben is one of them, Ben Horowitz. These people that kind of, I think, built stuff and went through things are definitely the people that I will reach out to, and I'm reaching out to kind of get advice on anything throughout this specific crisis and other crises that we had in the past. On top of it, I have my own routine, right? So I am it's very important for me in the morning to have coffee, but not to have coffee with the, the email and the text messages and all of this, but just sit in the backyard and having a coffee, and maybe that's my kind of meditation. I am biking from time to time, and that again helps me. Spending time with my kids actually helps a lot. So there are different things, but eventually it's also, I think that people that like to be CEOs or lead companies, also, part of what drives them is this ups and downs and the various crises and so on. So it's also, it's a challenge. It's not just a burden. I actually enjoy part of of this challenge.
Alyson, just to close us out, any other advice you would give to other CEOs, other HR leaders as they are managing through these really challenging times?
I think just continuing to lead with being vulnerable in front of your workforce. I mean, I'm very vocal about my mental health routine. I have an executive coach I couldn't live without. I have my own therapist. I have a couples therapist. I do meditation, I do it all. And it's the only way that I can, continue to operate and be highly functioning and productive. So I think it's just about being vocal about these things that don't mean something's wrong, right? And showing that it doesn't mean that you're acting from a position of weakness, but really about a position of strength and wanting to get better. And just creating a safe space for other people to do that as well. I think even in these types of fireside chats that we've had and ones that you've had as well with other leaders, sharing your own story of your own, everyone has their own mental health issues that they go through at different points in their life, whether it's being a new parent, starting a job, running a company. There's all these things that we can relate to. And when we share those stories, not just I'm depressed or I'm stressed or I'm anxious, but here's why. It might be I got no sleep last night because my kids are up all night, or my significant other lost their job, or we're now stressed financially, or I'm super anxious based on what we're seeing in the economy. There's all these things that if you share what you're going through, other people can relate to. And so I would just encourage people to be open about that, because you'd be surprised at how many other people out there share the same feelings and can support you during these tough times.
Alyson and Ariel, thank you so much. This has been really insightful.
Thank you.
Thank you.